Resourceful Designer, episode 78, Upselling to Increase Your Design Revenue.
Welcome to the Resourceful Designer Podcast, offering solutions to streamline your graphic and web design business so you can get back to designing. And now, your host. He loves strawberries, but they make his tongue itch. Mark DeCote.
Welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in this week. I am always so happy that you've taken the time to plug me in your ears or turn me on in the car or wherever it is you listen to me. I'm forever grateful that you've taken the time to tune in. Now, I've got a great topic to share with you today about upselling and how it can increase your design revenue. But before I get to that, I want to share a little bit of good news with you. I've ordered my new iMac. That's right. If you've heard me, I've talked about it before in the podcast, how I've been running on an old 2010, midsummer 2010 iMac here. And I've mentioned before how the tools are not what make the designer. It's the designer that makes the designer. And it doesn't matter what sort of tools they use. It's your ability that comes through. And it just goes to show you, I've been using this 7-year-old computers to do my websites, to do my print design, and to do everything, and it's worked. But it's well past the time for me to get a new one. So finally, this week I sat down, I configured the one I wanted, and I ordered it directly from Apple, and now it's the dreaded waiting period for it to be delivered. But hopefully, before the next episode of the podcast comes out, I'll be running my brand new 27-inch iMac. So that's my update for the week. Now, I just want to take a minute to thank everyone who signed up to be a patron of Resourceful Designer. I do appreciate your willingness to support this podcast on a monthly basis. If you get value out of Resourceful Designer, if you think this podcast is worth anything, please head over to resourcefuldesigner.com/Patreon, and that's Patreon, where you can support Resourceful Designer for as little as $1 per month. And every cent earned goes towards supporting this podcast. So thank you for everyone who has signed up. It is very much appreciated. And now, this week's Resource of the Week. I've already shared this resource in the Facebook group. So if you are a member of the Facebook group, you should have already seen my post there. And if you're not, you should be a member of the Facebook group, resourcefuldesigner.com/group to join. But this week's resource is a service called Missing Letter. And to be funny, Missing Letter is missing the last E, just like Fiverr and a bunch of other companies out there now that for some reason, I don't know, I have another podcasting friend, Dave, who constantly says that E's must be evil because all these companies are dropping the E's out of their names. So Missing Letter is Missing Letter, Lettr, with the E missing. Anyways, what Missing Letter is it allows you to create strategic, automatic social media campaigns to help drive traffic to your site or to wherever for an entire year. So this is geared more to bloggers. I'm using it as a podcaster, but if you have a design blog or if you have clients that have blogs, I've got clients that have, I had an episode that I did, or actually it's not an episode, it was a blog post I actually wrote a while back called A Blog That's Not a Blog, Convincing Your Clients They Need One, in where I mentioned how clients might not necessarily want to do a blog, but they might want to put out some news information. So I've got a few clients that I actually have set up, and instead of calling it a blog, I just call it their news section or their newsletter, and they put out industry news and that sort of thing. Well, using a resource like Missing Letter allows you to create what's called a drip campaign across social media. Right now, they can drip out a campaign to Facebook, to Twitter, to LinkedIn, to Google+, and very soon they're going to have Pinterest. And they're trying to add more as they progress. So every time you put out a blog post, Missing Letter will grab the information from that. And what's really interesting is it'll actually read through it and grab quotes from the post in order to create social media cards to send out. And then they'll notify you via email that there is a new campaign ready. You go in, you look through, and you can make alterations. You can change anything and then approve each one. And then once you launch the campaign, it'll slowly drip this content out over the course of a full year. And you don't have to worry about it. Now, I've set up Resourceful Designer with it. So every time I put out a new podcast episode, I set up this campaign. And then I know that Immediately, there'll be something to go out to Facebook and Twitter and all those social media platforms. And then next week, there'll be another, then 2 weeks after that, then a month after that. And then so that over time, it's just to keep stuff front of mind. If you know about blogs, if you know about that sort of stuff, you know the importance of keeping stuff fresh because there's so much information going through in the industry and online and all that these days that you have to constantly be in front of people's eyes for them to see it. So this is a great way to keep your old content fresh. So once again, if you have a blog, or if you have clients that have blogs, or if you know anybody that has a blog, Missing Letter is a great platform for them to save time in sharing this stuff across all their social media platforms. And I don't know how long this is going on for, but right now they gave me a link to share that offers 6 months for the price of 1 month if you sign up using resourcefuldesigner.com/missingletter. But remember that letter, there's no E in it. Well, I guess, yes, there is. There's the first letter E. Making this complicated, aren't I? Letter is Lettr. So the second E is missing from letter. So resourcefuldesigner.com/missingletter. If you use that link and you sign up, whichever plan you sign up for, you pay for 1 month and you get 6 months worth of service. So if that's something that you can use, or it's something that you have clients that might be interested in it, give it a try. And now this week's topic, upselling to increase your design revenue. Now, before I go any further, those of you who know selling strategies or into marketing and all that, you're going to call me out and say, Mark, some of the stuff you're talking about is not upselling. That's actually cross-selling. And yes, I agree with you. Some of the things I will talk about are technically cross-selling, and cross-selling is kind of upselling's twin brother. So yes, they are two different things, but in this podcast, I'm going to be referring to upselling for everything. Now, if you don't know what upselling is the process of getting somebody to purchase something else while they're buying one thing. Perfect example of an upsell is when you go to a fast food joint and you order, say, I want a regular drink, and they'll say, do you want to make it a large for an extra 50 cents? Well, that is an upsell. You ask for a regular, and for 50 cents more, you can make it a large. And the reason they do that is that if you agree, you're giving them an extra 50 cents for what probably costs them 2 cents worth of cola or whatever drink you're getting. So they are making an extra profit on selling you the extra little bit. The size of the cup probably only cost them an extra penny. So that's how restaurants and especially fast food places make their profits, is through upselling. Now, just to satisfy those of you who know the difference between upselling and cross-selling, an example with fast food, upselling is, would you like to pay 50 cents to increase that from a regular to a large? Where cross-selling is, you're buying a drink and they ask you, do you want fries with that? Cross-selling is when it's a different product. Upselling is when it's the same product, but just better. Now, other examples of upselling, I mean, the fast food industry is a perfect example, but sometimes there could be stuff like you go to the gas station and you fill up your car and you get a notice. Do you want a car wash with that? Well, that would be, again, it's a type of an upsell. If you go buy a computer or you buy a TV or you buy something and the salesperson offers to sell you an extended warranty, that is an upsell because they make money on selling you the extended warranty. I mentioned at the beginning that I bought a brand new iMac. Well, I did buy the Apple Care plan with that. That was an upsell. When I went to checkout, it asked me, did I want the Apple Care plan? And yes, I've always bought the Apple Care plan for any Apple device that I've bought. It's paid for itself so many times in the past. This Mac that I'm using right now, the monitor, the screen went on it once, and I was able to have it replaced free of charge because I had the Apple Care plan. Now, that was many years ago. So I always do that. But that came to me, even though I wanted to, it was an upsell. When I went to check out after configuring the computer, before the checkout process went through, it asked me, did I want to get the Apple Care plan? Infomercials that you see on TV are notorious for upselling. Late at night, when you turn on the television and you see some electronic egg beater, and you're looking at that and going, well, why do I want an egg beater, especially at $19.99? That sounds kind of crazy. But then they throw in and says, for no extra cost, we'll throw in these whatever airtight containers for you to store your beaten eggs in afterwards in the fridge. And then you start going, well, now that $19.99, it sounds a little like a better deal because you get the egg beater and you get these containers. But wait, that's not all. If you order now, we'll send you 2 egg beaters for you, and you can give one away as a gift. All you have to pay is shipping and handling, and the second unit is yours free. Well, that there is an upsell. You were maybe contemplating buying an electronic egg beater. Don't ask me why, but maybe you were contemplating it. And you were kind of on the fence. $19.95 sounds like a lot of money for an egg beater, but now all of a sudden they threw in these extra containers, and you said, well, that's a little bit more enticing. But wow, all you have to do is pay extra shipping and handling, and they'll send you a second egg beater? I'm sold. They just got somebody that maybe or maybe not would have purchased it to go ahead and make the sale. So they made the sale by upselling. And most of these cases, the cost of the shipping and handling more than covers the actual cost of the unit that's being sent to you. And finally, another sort of upsell is when you buy something on Amazon. If you've ever gone to Amazon and you put something in your cart, you'll always see at the bottom that, people who bought this frequently bought this. And they'll show you some other items. For example, if you go and you're looking at cameras, they'll show you that people who bought this camera often bought these SD cards to go with them, or these extra battery packs, or this camera case. Sometimes they'll buy all these things and they show you. And those are upsellings, or yes, technically they're cross sells, but they're upsells. They're getting you to purchase more stuff while you're purchasing the one. So that's what the purpose of upselling is to get someone to purchase more. But a lot of people think that upselling is actually a dirty word because you're trying to manipulate people into buying something extra. But in reality, upselling actually helps your clients because it gives them more value from you. And it helps your business get more loyalty and, of course, more revenue out of your clients. You see, when done correctly, upselling can help build a deeper relationship with your clients. Back in episode 72 of the podcast, which was titled Getting New Design Work from Existing Clients, I talked about how you can use your existing clients to try to get them to give you new work, asking them if they need things. I gave you a bunch of ideas there. Well, upselling is a great way to get new work from design clients. Don't look at it as a sales tactic. Look at it as a client happiness tactic, because what you're actually doing, yes, you are making more revenue, but you're also delivering more value, and your clients will appreciate that. And remember, it's a lot easier to sell something to an existing client than it is to a new client. So what are some examples of upselling that you can use in your graphic design business? Well, let's say you do websites and you've been contracted to design a brand new website for a company. Well, some of the upsells you can do is offer hosting. I offer, ever since I've been in business, I've offered hosting services, and I make some nice money hosting websites for people. You can offer maintenance on the website. And when I say maintenance, that's just routine maintenance. I'm not talking about changing the website whenever the client needs that. I'm just talking about regular maintenance, like updating plugins and keeping, if you're on WordPress, making sure WordPress is up to date, making sure your security is in place, that sort of stuff. You can offer security as an upsell. You can offer backups as an upsell. And these are great revenue streams for your business. Anytime I quote on a brand new website, I always have 2 contracts that I get. First of all, I talk to the client about the website. We determine a price. I get them to sign the contract. Then I ask them about hosting. And I always give them the option, if you want to go find your own host, that's fine. But I always recommend they host through me, because that way I know my host. I know I have full access. I can do everything. I'm used to dealing with my host. So a lot of times it's a very easy sell to get them to host the website with me. Now, in the process of hosting, I also offer them the maintenance, where I will maintain and keep the website up to date. I will do backups of the website, make sure that there's always a backup, and include security for the website. And for that, I make a good monthly profit on that, because really, as far as hosting, maintenance, backup, and security, once you set up the backup software, it takes care of itself. Once you set up the security software, it takes care of itself. Maintenance, maybe, 30 seconds a month to go in and update plugins. If I want to be generous, let's say 2 minutes. It takes 2 minutes for a website to go in and update the WordPress, the theme, and the plugins. So in essence, you're spending 2 minutes per month and you're collecting whatever. I charge $35 a month for hosting. That includes these services. So for the 2 minutes it takes me to go in and do these things per month, I'm making $35. And in all reality, I'm not even doing it myself. I'm having my virtual assistant do it for me. So I don't even have to worry about it. But when you add up a lot of websites, these upsells turn into a very nice revenue. Because if I'm making $35 a month off of dozens of websites, it really starts to add up. Now, if you're doing websites, another upsell that is very easy to do is while you're building a website and you're creating a look for somebody, you can offer to do their social media. Why not build or design their Facebook page, the look of their page, the header for Twitter, for Instagram, for Pinterest, all these different social media platforms. And you can say, why don't we make them all consistent with the website? So as you're building the stuff for the website, you can easily create them for the social media. And that is something you can charge extra. It's an upsell. You can ask them, are you on social media? Do you want to be branded equally across everything? I can do that. So easy upsells for websites, as well as, there's lots of other things when you can offer premium plugins that you can charge for certain services. Like, especially if you buy a developer license, there's several plugins that I bought a developer license for, which means that I can install them on as many websites as I want. But the client doesn't need to know that. And I can charge them a special fee because it's a premium plugin. I could say, do you want this ability on your website? Well, I can do that, but it'll cost you this much per year or whatever I want to charge. So that's an upsell. Now, when it comes to print design, you can say, well, okay, I can understand for website, you got hosting and that, but what are you going to do for print design? Well, there's similar upsells you can do. We've been doing it for years. Long before we were designing websites, there was upsells in the print industry. Think about it. Somebody comes to you and they need a logo, and that's all they want is a logo. Well, you can always ask them, well, you're getting a logo. Do you want business cards? Do you want letterheads? Do you want envelopes? Again, social media. You're designing a logo. Do you want me to also design your Facebook and your Twitter and your Instagram and all Snapchat or whatever platforms you're on? Do you want me to design the headers for that so that you're consistent with everything? Business cards. Somebody comes in. This used to happen all the time when I worked at the print shop. Somebody would come in and say, I need business cards. Well, do you have a logo? Well, no, I don't really have a logo. Well, would you like us to design a logo for you? And that was an upsell. After that, you have a logo. You can do whatever with your logo. But they came in wanting a business card. Now, that's the mentality of dealing in a print shop. People go in wanting something printed and then get other stuff. If you're a designer at home, chances are somebody's not going to come to you and say, I need a business card design, but I don't have a logo. They'll do it the other way around. But when you are working at a print shop, that's the mentality people have. They don't think of design first. They think of printing first. But sometimes, as I said, it's just little things. Like if you're designing a letterhead, stationery for people, and they say, well, we want envelopes. Well, do you want to design for a regular envelope? Do you also want to design for a window envelope? Are you going to be sending out checks and invoices and stuff through the mail? And if so, maybe you'll want to design for an envelope. Or if you're doing printing, you can say, you want to print these envelopes. You can also do stuff like vehicle wraps, signage, ebooks. If you're doing a booklet for something, for some convention, for some group, maybe you're doing an annual report, well, you can upsell and say, would you also like, along with designing this for print, would you also like an ebook of this? And programs like InDesign and Quark Express make it really easy these days to create ebooks from the print files. There are so many different print options that you can upsell to clients. Stickers. Man, stickers are so popular. Design a logo for somebody and you said, do you need business cards? And they'll say, no, I don't need business cards. That's for old fogies. I don't need that. But then you turn around and say, what do you think about stickers? And all of a sudden you see their eyes perk up and they go, stickers with my logo. Yeah, that sounds cool. So you turn around, you just design a logo for somebody and then you upsell them on getting stickers made. If you think way, way back to the beginning of this podcast, episode 2, Do Your Clients Know What You Do? In which I talked about how most of the time when a client comes to you to have something designed, they don't know the full scope of what you're capable of. They don't necessarily know that just because you design logos, you can also design a t-shirt for them, or you can design business cards, or you can design a website. They don't know that unless you tell them. So when somebody comes in to ask you for something, to design something for them, you should mention other things. I can't tell you how many times a client has come in and asked me, he says, Mark, we've got some sort of event coming up. Can you design the poster for us? And I said, sure, I'd love to design your poster. And while we're discussing the thing, I'd say, well, what about rack cards? And they'll go, well, what's a rack card? And I said, it's a little card. It's about 4 inches by 9 inches high. And, they go in all those displays around town that have flyers and brochures and stuff like that. Well, you can't stick a poster there, but you can stick these rack cards for people to pick up. And they'll go, wow, that's a great idea. Okay, well, why don't we do those too? I just did an upsell. I convinced a client to purchase a rack card, which is a benefit to them. It's going to help them, but it'll help my pocketbook as well because I'm doing more work. Now, again, don't forget the cross-sell. If you're designing websites, why don't you offer to design a postcard for the client announcing the website that they can mail out to all their clients saying, hey, look, we've got a new website, or vice versa. If you design packaging for a new product that your client just came out and you just designed the beautiful packaging for it, why not offer to create a landing page on their website specifically for that package? There are so many possibilities to do an upsell. So when a client comes to you with one project in mind, you've got to kind of educate them, broaden their horizons by showing them all the different possibilities. There has been so many times over the years, as I said, that a client has come to me with one project and I ended up doing multiple things for them, collecting money for each one. Now, back in episode 49 of the podcast, Print Brokering to Supplement Your Graphic Design Business, I talked about how you can make a really good profit offering print brokering. And that's when, if you design business cards or something, instead of just giving the file to your client and letting them go get printing done, you handle the printing for a small fee, either a markup or a percentage off from the printer. That's the way I work with my printers. They give me a 15% discount so that what I am charging my client is the exact same price the client would get if they went directly to the printer. But now they don't have to worry about it. I'll deal with the printer for them. And the printer just knocks off 15% off the invoice I pay them. So the client pays me the full price, and then I pay 85% of it to the printer and keep 15% for myself. But when it comes to print brokering, there is an upsell as well. If somebody comes to you and says, I need 500 business cards, well, you can tell them, you look at your prices, and if you know anything about printing, the prices drop exponentially the more you get, because most of the cost in printing comes with the setup, getting everything ready to print. Once the presses are running, the only costs involved are time and paper. And yeah, of course, ink. But so whenever it comes to printing, say something, I'm just going to rattle off some prices. These are not real prices, but just to give you an example. If you're going to get 500 business cards, maybe you're going to pay $40 for 500 business cards. But to get 1,000 business cards, you might pay $50. So when a client comes in and says, I need 500 business cards, and you say, okay, they're $40, but for $50, you can get 1,000. You can double your order for an extra $10. Is that worth it? And the client might go, I hadn't really thought about it, but why not? It's only an extra $10. I'll do that. Because in the process, whatever percentage you were making, now you're making a little bit more. Now, a great upsell to do with printing is when somebody orders something, try to find out if you can get more. And what I'm saying, this works great on reorders. Say some company, you've designed business cards for them before, and they contact you and they say, hey, Mark, we've got a new employee. He needs a business card. Here's his information. Can we get 500 business cards for him? Sure, I'll do up that information. But then in the process, I'll ask, is there anybody else there that needs new business cards or that is running low? I know I've done business cards for 5, 6, 7, 8 more people in your company. Are any of them running low? Because I can offer you a discount if you order more than one set. And they'll go, oh, really? As soon as you mention a discount, people kind of perk up. And you say, I can offer you a discount. If you order 2 or 3 or 4 more cards, I can offer you a discount. And the reason you do something like this is, look at it this way. Again, if I'm just using fictional pricing, say somebody wants 500 business cards. It's going to cost them, say, $40. Now, myself, say I order them for the printer for $20. That's what I pay the printer. And if I'm using an online printer, they might have to ship them. So there's an extra $10. So I'm paying $20 for the business card, $10 for shipping, and I'm charging the client $40. So I make $10 on an order of 500 business cards. Now, if I can convince them that they should get some extra, so now this person that called me and said, so-and-so needs some cards, she's going to ask around. Somebody says, well, I only have about 100 cards left, or I've got about a quarter or a third of the box. Yeah, why don't I order some? So next thing you know, they have 3 orders. So they got this new order and then 2 reorders. Well, what happens when you send something to a print shop is if you have 500 business cards, they charge you for 500 business cards. If you have 3 orders of 500 business cards, they charge you for 1,500 business cards. And remember what I said earlier, that the cost goes down exponentially the more you order. So if the printer was charging me $20 for 500 cards and I order 1,500 cards, they might charge me, I don't know, let's just say $40. They'll charge me $40 for 1,500 cards. Well, right there, I just saved $20 for that order. Now, 1,500 cards, they're going to ship them back to me, and it's probably going to cost, again, $10. So now I just paid $40 plus $10 for the shipping to get 3 sets of cards. Where before, if you go by my previous example, when I was paying $20 plus $10 for shipping, and I was charging the client $40, I was making $10 profit. Well, now I charge the client, even if I say the client, instead of paying $40 for the card, I get you a discount of $35 because you ordered 3 sets. They're going to be happy because they're saving money. They save $15. But in the process, I paid $40 to have 1,500 cards printed plus $10 for shipping. So I paid $50 and I'm charging $105 to my clients. So I just went from a $10 profit to a $55 profit, and it benefited my client at the same time. If they would have come to me at 3 separate times and said, Mark, we've got this new order of cards for this person. Can you do it? Sure, I do it. Then a month or 2 later, they come up to me and says, oh, so-and-so is running low on cards. Can you order some for him? Sure, I'll do that. Again, another $10 profit. And then another month or 2 down the road, Sally needs some new cards. Can you order 500 for her? Sure. There's another $10 profit. But by bulking them together, I made a $55 profit as opposed to a $30 profit over that time. And it was through an upsell. I offered them to increase their order. You'll get a discount if you place more than 1 order at a time. It's the same thing whenever somebody places an order for, say, we're running low on letterheads, Mark. Can we get some letterheads? Sure. How are you doing on envelopes? Well, envelopes were kind of okay. Well, you realize it's cheaper if you order the 2 of them at the same time. What about invoices? What about business cards? The more things you can pile together, the cheaper the print run is, especially if there's colors involved, because usually you have to pay to get the colors on press. So if the colors are on the press, then they could run the business cards, the letterheads, the envelopes with that color, and you're only paying once to put that color on press. So print brokering is a great one to get upsells. Now, the last thing I want to talk about in the upselling is a retainer. Back in episode 32 of the podcast, Graphic Designer with a Retainer Agreement, I talked about the various ways that a retainer can work, where you get paid monthly. Now, retainers are awesome because you know you have a steady income. If somebody is paying you a fixed amount every month for your services, you can guarantee on that income coming in every month. And a retainer is a great upsell. When you are doing stuff on a regular basis for a client, and some months is more, some months is less, you go to them and you say, hey, why don't we set up a retainer agreement? Here's how much you would pay me for X amount of hours of work. Now, the benefit to you, the client, is that because I'm on retainer, you would take precedence over any other job I'm doing. So if you call and you need something, I could, unless there's a special circumstance, I could bump other clients in order to do stuff for you. And sometimes just that alone will entice people to get on a retainer agreement where they know they have a designer on call that's ready to work for them. Because some people don't like if they call you up and say, oh, we need this done. Sure, I'd love to do it, but I'm working on all this other stuff, so it might be a week or 2 before I can get to it. Well, if you can say, you pay me a monthly retainer and I'm available to you whenever you need me and I'll drop my other stuff, then that's great. And what you do is you set up the thing. So maybe it's, 20 hours per month. And if they use up the 20 hours and they go over, you charge them extra. But if they only use 15 hours, then you still charge them for 20 hours worth of work. That's usually how the retainer thing works. And it's great because you're guaranteed your income. And especially if they don't use up all the hours, you're making extra money off of it. But the benefit to the client is they're paying a fixed amount every month. and they know that they have a designer that's ready to work for them whenever they need them. So that's a great upsell for clients that you do stuff on a regular basis. Now, a retainer agreement is not something I would consider with a new client right off the bat. Usually that's something you bring that subject up once you've been dealing with a client on a regular basis, and you can kind of judge what sort of work you're doing, how much work you do monthly. And then you can approach them with that subject of saying, hey, why don't we set up this thing? It'll help you out because it'll give you priority, and you know that I'll always be here for you for this amount of hours. And then you can even give them some sort of discount. If you go over these hours, then additional hours instead of my regular rate of whatever, I'll give you a discounted rate for anything that goes over the agreed upon hours. And that's another way to entice. It's another upsell that'll make the clients go, hey, that's worth it. And you don't lose anything, because if you go over the hours, you're still making money on an hourly basis if you go over the fixed hours. But if you don't reach the fixed hours in a month, if you agree to 20 hours and you, again, only do 15 hours, you're getting 5 hours of revenue there that you didn't have to do anything for. Now, yes, there's some clients that'll say, oh, I better make sure that you have enough work. And you'll get those. I mean, there's always those. But then there's other clients that they just know for the convenience, it's worth paying you just to have the convenience that you're on call for them. So another great upsell, but that's one that's mostly for established clients. So I just wanted to broach this topic today about upselling. I hear about designers doing a lot of jobs for people, but they got to realize, or you have to realize, that there is so much more you could be doing for your clients. And as I mentioned in previous podcasts, most of the time your clients don't know that there is extra stuff you can do for them. And by offering them, by telling them different things you can do, by selling them on these different features, different services, different products, you are upselling, you are helping your client, you are creating a relationship with them, and you are helping your revenue stream, increasing it and making a healthier bottom line for your business. And it's so easy because you're already discussing a job with them. Anytime you're sitting down and talking about a job, start thinking about it in your mind. What else can you offer them? Is there anything that they're not expecting, anything they're not thinking about that could be associated? Even if it's as simple as stickers. Because every little bit, whether you make a couple of dollars off of it or you make hundreds of dollars off the upsell, every little bit will help your bottom line. Now, I would love to know if you have any examples of upselling that you do in your business. Please visit resourcefuldesigner.com/episode 78 and share your comments there, telling me what sort of upselling you do. And now, this week's question of the week. This week's question comes in from, I don't know, what's this? 2 weeks in a row where people are using funny names here. This one comes in from Florida Boy. It says, hello, Mark. I've listened to a lot of your podcasts, and while at this moment I'm not looking to make the leap just yet into becoming a solopreneur, I am very much inclined to do so. In multiple podcasts, you mentioned that although we are alone, we do not need to go about conducting business alone. It's okay to have help. I have over a decade of experience with print media, shirts, signs, etc. But what if, instead of only contracting out specific things, I contracted out, say, all work and focused on maintaining relationships with the customers and designers and all the marketing aspects? Does it seem like too much to not have a handle on? I would really love to hear your thoughts on this. Thank you, and keep up the great work on the podcast. Well, thank you for the question, Florida Boy. Now, I have mixed feelings about this. It sounds great in theory that you would be like the art director directing all these different pieces, but that usually works within a studio environment where you have everybody on hand that you can manage and direct and guide. The way you're talking about it, it just sounds like a lot of pieces that you don't have 100% control over. And I can see a lot of things going wrong with this. First of all, because of the way you're talking about, you are in essence the middleman for everything. And what's the first thing you want to do whenever you want to cut costs is get rid of the middleman. And I've seen this before. I talk about print brokering. I mentioned it earlier in this podcast. And it's a great way to add revenue. Well, the very first time I ever heard about print brokering is when I was working at the print shop. And there was a print broker that we dealt with a lot. And that's exactly what he did. That's all he did was he brokered printing. He went to companies to find out if they needed printing, and then he would take care of it, arrange the printing. If they needed design work, he would bring it into, say, us, or I don't know where else he was dealing with, but he would get the design work done and then get the printing done. And he would mark up the price a little bit, and it was a convenience cost. Like, the companies would hire him so that they didn't have to deal with the printer. But a lot of company these days are looking at cutting costs, and the middleman will be the first person to go. So unless you can swing a lot of discounts, and if you listen to my print brokering episode, I talked about how I negotiated discounts with my local printers so that the client pays the same price. Well, if it's a case like that, then yes, it could work. But there could be a lot of running around and stuff where you can do a lot of work for very little. Because think about it, if you are doing the printing, depending on what your markup is, if it's only like 5-10% and it's just a small print run, because not many people are getting large print runs these days. If it's just a small print run, you could do a lot of work for getting just, I don't know, $10, $15 profit. And it just doesn't sound that feasible. Not to mention that you have to pay the designers. If you have developers, if you have web designers, illustrators, all these different things, you're going to have to pay them. And yes, you can farm that out. There's different places in the world where you can go and get stuff for like pennies on the dollar and probably make a good profit doing it that way. But then what you run into the problem is consistency of work, because let's say you hire somebody in some country that the cost of living is very low. So where in the US or here in Canada, where a designer might charge $50, $75, $100, you hire somebody in some country where they're charging $5 an hour or $10 an hour. So you would say to your client, sure, we'll do whatever, $50 an hour, but you're only paying $5 or $10 an hour. That sounds like a really good profit. But what happens is these people tend to come and go, and it could lose consistency with your brand as a middleman or broker or whatever. If the design, you have one guy designing something, and all of a sudden he gets a job somewhere and doesn't want to do this anymore, and he leaves, and now you have to find somebody else who might have a completely different design style. So it's really tough in that way. Whereas if you're doing the work, like when somebody comes to me, they're hiring me for the design. They're hiring me for my expertise, for my skills, for my knowledge. And they're hiring me because I also have the network that if I don't have those skills, I don't have that knowledge, they know that I can go out and I can get it. And yes, I may run into the same problems that I just mentioned for you, where maybe a developer I've hired no longer wants to do work for me, or got a job somewhere and doesn't want to do this on the side anymore, and I have to find another developer. But the bulk of the project is still going through me, and I still have more control over it than the way you're describing it. So I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm sure there are people out there doing it. I would just be very skeptical of the whole thing. And thinking from a client's point of view, I would much rather deal directly with the designer that's going to work on the project, as opposed to dealing directly with somebody that is then going to pass the information on to the designer. And you might say, well, that's easy. I just get the client to talk directly to the designer. Well, then the next step that's involved is the client bypassing you, get rid of the middleman, and going directly to the designer for future work. So I don't know how sustainable that business is. I did tell you that I knew the first time I saw that was in the printing industry. There were a couple of print brokers we dealt with. Every single one of them ended up closing their business. I don't know of any of them that are still in business today, because it was too hard a business model to maintain, because people just got wise and started finding other ways and eliminating the middleman. So again, I'm not saying it can't be done, but I would be skeptical. And again, from a client's point of view, I would want to deal with somebody who was actually doing the work, as opposed to just somebody who's going to pass on my information. Because usually when you pass on information, there's stuff that gets left out, and that's when all sorts of trouble can arise. So maybe not the answer you wanted to hear, Florida Boy, but I just want to be honest with you, and I don't think this is a feasible business idea, business plan. But again, I don't know. Maybe you can do something and make it work if you want to give it a try. But I personally, it's not something I would think would work out that well. Now, if anybody else has a different opinion for Florida Boy, please leave a comment on the show notes episode for this episode at resourcefuldesigner.com/episode 78. And you can leave a comment there letting him know what you think of his idea. Now, thank you for that question, Florida Boy. Now, my mailbag is running low, so if you have a question you would like me to answer on a future episode of the podcast, please visit resourcefuldesigner.com/feedback and submit your question for me to answer on a future episode. Now, before I go, I want to read another great iTunes review I received. This one came in from Leo the Explorer in the UK. It says, a great mentor. Mark's honest and down-to-earth approach is just what the doctor ordered. Very practical and extremely personable. Follow his group on Facebook as well to get the well-rounded experience. From Leo the Explorer. Well, thank you very much, Leo, for the kind words and the wonderful 5-star review in iTunes. I love reading these things. It really makes me feel like this podcast is well worth it when I see these things. And this one here, all the way from the UK. Now, if you would like to leave a review for the podcast, please visit resourcefuldesigner.com/iTunes, and that'll redirect you to the iTunes store where you can leave your review. And no matter where you are in the world, I will receive it. Now, I want to remind you one more time of this week's resource of the week, which is missing letter with the final E in letter not there. It's missing. A great tool that I've been using for several months, and I'm extremely happy with it. I've been using it for Resourceful Designer, and I'm extremely happy with the results I'm getting. And if you want to get 6 months for the price of only 1 month, please use that link, resourcefuldesigner.com/missing letter, again with the E removed at the end. So that's it for this episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. I look forward to talking with you again next week. I am Mark Dacote, wishing you all the best for your graphic design business, and as always, reminding you to stay creative.
Thanks for listening to the Resourceful Designer Podcast at resourcefuldesigner.com.